Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about this episode and I'm honored to have you. Joe is my brother-in-law, and this is Joe Ayala. He came all the way from California, and I'm really excited to talk to him today. Joe is going to be the first part of our series that we're starting called Aspire Stories, where we're just going to hear about people's experiences with mental health, therapy, and how that's been helpful to them. So, Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Angela, for having me.
Yeah.
So it's been great. This is a new experience for me as well. So
awesome.
Looking forward to it.
So, Joe, I feel like, as my brother-in-law, I know you pretty well, but for everyone else, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what life looks like for you out in California?
Sure. I'm a director of technology for a large public school district in the Silicon Valley. I'm a dad of 3 teenage sons. Nice. I'm married, obviously.
To an awesome woman, I might add.
Yes, definitely. And I'm excited to share my journey.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Thank you again. So could you just start off by sharing a little bit about what was going on in your life a few years ago that led you to feel like, hey, you know what? I think I need to start therapy. I think I want to join or start this journey.
Well, I've done therapy off and on for a while, but when I first started off with therapy, I was like, well, I really like going to therapy. It was like admitting that I needed some help. And so I was like kind of hesitant initially. And then also I ran into unfortunately some like bad therapists, or maybe not bad therapists, but therapists that didn't connect with me directly. Sure. And then that seemed very helpful. And it's like, oh, like here I'm paying this expensive costs. Yeah. And nothing seems to be working. Yeah. But I would say almost like 6 years ago now. Okay. So I finished a divorce. And so at like around 6 months, I was like, okay, like I can either like stay in this state of like, where am I at? Or I can get up and start to rebuild. Yeah. And one of the things I had to first do is like, okay, like I need help. And I think for a guy, for a man, it's very typical like us to not ask for help. And so, but if I don't have like the right tool, I'm not going to not do the project. I'm going to, of course, go to the Home Depot or Lowe's and buy the tool that I need. Yeah. Oh, that's such a great analogy, man. So I looked at therapy like the same way.
So recognizing like, all right, I need something. If this was any other area of my life, like we talk a lot in therapy about, if all of a sudden you're having horrible stomach pains, you're not going to just suck it up and be like, well, I guess this is my life now. You'd go to the doctor, right?
Well, unfortunately, most men also struggle with going to the doctor as well.
That's a really great point. That's a really great point. Yeah. So actually take me back even growing up, what messages did you either directly or indirectly have about mental health as a boy, as a man, or was it just never even talked about? Like, what did you think about it when you were younger?
Yeah, I would say that it was like looked down upon. Like it was either not talked about or looked down upon. Like it was admitting that you needed help. It didn't matter just as a man, it mattered like as a family thing. And either from like both sides of my family, I'm, half Hispanic and then half white. And then so like both sides of the family, it was something that was not talked about, accepted. It wasn't like a tool that we were given.
Okay. So it wasn't like an option given for you. And it sounds like potentially even maybe some negative messaging about it.
I think so. Just like kind of like a Lone Ranger, like you have to like, pull up your bootstraps and like just get to work. Just like stop being sensitive, like just go through it. Right.
And I think unfortunately that stigma is still out there for a lot of men, right? That it's, weak if you go to therapy and, or you can't ask for help, that, you're not supposed to bring this stuff outside the family, like deal with it either yourself or with just like your closest family or friends. And just what would you say to that point in general about overcoming maybe some of that stigma?
I think like, I wish I would have entered into therapy like much, much sooner. It's just like a whole tool set of like things, not just like the therapy itself, but like reflection after therapy or like even like the preamble up to therapy of just like, okay, what do I want to talk about? Even that just like focusing and kind of outlining different things. I think when therapy really took off for me is when I gave myself a list of goals. And then I told a therapist, like, here's what I want to accomplish. Can you help me with that?
I love that. That's such a huge part of therapy. And I don't know that it's talked about enough. We call it in the therapy world, we call it the treatment planning process. And the idea is exactly that you know what you want, you know what change you want to see. You just may not know how to get there. And we're not magic. We don't know what you want or what your life should look like. We're just there to help guide. And so if those two things can come together where you can say, here's what I really want to achieve. And we can say, now that we know that, we have some strategies to help, that tends to lead to much more success in therapy.
That's great to know. Yeah.
I
kind of just stumbled upon it. So yes.
Yeah. So, all right, tell me about what was going on in your life. You said 6 years ago, but then also, again, I think maybe it was about 6 years ago that you started to go through some really tough things that kind of led you into that, recognizing I need a new tool. What was going on?
It was like 6 months after a divorce, separation. It was like, okay, like, what do I need to own?
Yeah.
And then what do I need to do better at? And then like, I just didn't like where my life was at.
Okay.
And so like, how do I it wasn't a great spiritual awakening. It was like, here's the reality. No one's going to come save you.
Yeah.
So how, yes, to be strong and courageous and like, how do I get through this? But knowing that I didn't have everything I needed to kind of go through that experience. Okay. And so started with that.
Yeah.
And then I found like this amazing, I got super lucky, I feel like.
Nice.
But I found like amazing therapist that shared my faith.
Oh, cool.
Then I work in public education. She worked in public education. Her main job was public education.
Oh,
she was like doing therapy on the side.
Yeah.
So I was super appreciative of that. And so someone that understood my like work world and all the stress and all that comes with it. And then just someone that had a similar faith was very, very helpful.
Yeah. And you're speaking to something that's so crucial when finding and seeking for a therapist is to really look for that fit, right? We mentioned this in one of our earlier podcast episodes that not every therapist, even if they're great, is going to be the right fit for every person, every personality, every experience. And so being okay with saying like, hey, I gave it 3 sessions. That's typically what we recommend. Like give it some time to see if it gels. And if it doesn't, it's okay to try again, right? And not get discouraged in that process. So I'm glad that you didn't give up when you had some of those therapists that weren't the right fit for you and kind of persevered until you found the one that was.
Yeah. And she told me later that she wasn't sure if I was the right fit for her because it was like a different, like she was trying something new. She was trying to expand her therapy and her counseling.
Oh, okay.
And so like it ended up turning to be a perfect fit.
Oh, that's really cool. Awesome. So, all right, let's talk about we talked a little bit about that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm weak if I do this but were there any other fears or nerves kind of going in? Were you nervous about like, do I say everything? Do I say the right thing? Like how did you feel just beginning the journey?
I think like in my 30s, like Trump, like I think I had a misconception, like if I go to 3 to 5 sessions, then I'll be fixed. Are very like isolating, like, okay, this is only one problem when I'm sure as a therapist, like one problem is related to another problem, which is related to another problem. And then sometimes it feels kind of never ending. But I think what was very helpful in this case was having that connection. And then also being in a place where I was like very hungry to like grow and change.
Yeah. So you were ready. Like you came in a stage of readiness to say, I want to see change. I want to have action.
I just felt like with my own skill set and then where I was at, okay, this has gotten me here. I don't want to be here forever. How do I like have a more healthier life? Not just like physically, but also like with mental health, emotionally. How do you control your emotions? How do you like overall overcome things that, that weren't your faults, but like could have happened in your childhood?
Right.
How do you like, if you learn bad habits along the way, how do you like relearn how to do things in a more healthier way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say your expectations of therapy when you entered in? How did that match your actual experience?
That's a great question. I would say that I knew like I was at a low point. And so I really wanted to focus on, okay, how do I get out of like this basement in a sense? And then I knew it was going to take a lot of like building, like, building a stairway or building a ladder. Yeah. So then I can then challenge my next set of goals.
Oh, I like that. So you recognized early on that it wasn't like one leap over. I think this is another analogy that we shared earlier in another episode, but we say it a lot. Like, we're not just asking someone to stand on one side of a riverbank, see their goal on the other and take one giant leap and be like, cool, 2 sessions, you made it. It is a lot about those small steps, like stepping stones across, or in your analogy, taking that next step on the ladder, the next rung, and kind of getting there. And that's such a healthy perspective. Change does not happen overnight. Change does not happen. It's not typically like some miraculous thing and like, whoa, I woke up and everything's different. It is these baby steps to get there. And sometimes people can find that discouraging, but when you engage in it, it actually can be really encouraging because you see, wow, I've already gone up 3 rungs. Wow, now I've gone up 10 rungs, and it can actually be pretty exciting to see that change. Did you have that experience?
So I think I picked up there's been a big emphasis, thankfully, in terms of mental health, and public education is really focusing on it, as well as how do we help students not only educate them, but also educate them how to control their emotions, and then how to self-regulate, different things like that. So I just knew in my time, my journal entries were very unkind to myself. And so I knew I knew a little bit, but I think what this counselor really did is tie all these strategies together. And that was a plan for me. And so I knew a little bit, it's exercising is good for you.
Right.
Journaling is good for you. But but how do you I don't know, overcome those gaps, and how do you just writing stuff down is a great first step.
Yeah.
But if you're not connecting to something else, it doesn't help as much as it could.
Yeah, I like that. So, and the idea of having an individualized plan for you, that again is such a core component of good therapy, right? There isn't one prescription. It's not like an antibiotic or something where you got strep throat, you could take this and it works for everybody. It's not like that, right? It really should be an individualized plan based on your own strengths already, your hobbies, your interests, what you like to do, things that have worked for you in the past. And also one thing we ask a lot in therapy, especially when people are just starting out, is what have you tried that doesn't work for you? Because let's just not even go there. Let's throw that out, right? So really kind of creating this individualized plan for success for you. That's so important.
No, that's critical, because I unfortunately went to another therapist that was a very template-based therapist. And that felt very then you kind of feel I don't feel heard. I don't feel like you're even listening.
Yes.
I don't feel like you are giving me a prescription for antibiotics and I may not even need it.
Unfortunately that does still happen. And I'm glad that, again, you didn't give up on the process and found somebody who was a better fit for you. Yeah. So I'd love to hear, if you're open to sharing, just some of your overall takeaways from therapy. What was really helpful? What was part of that individualized plan? As much as you're comfortable sharing, what were some of those strategies and things that really helped you move forward and accomplish your goals?
I think it was as I'm not going to try to generalize as all men, but one of the key things is I felt if I wasn't producing, I wasn't productive, then I wasn't. My value was connected to my productivity, and so even resting was very, very difficult.
Yes.
And so doing some of the self care, going for a walk, is that the best use of my time? Journaling,
right.
Is this actually making an impact? What I absolutely loved about my therapist is she would do different strategies because she began to know me. Yeah. And she said, hey, I want you to watch this movie. And I want you to watch this movie and then reflect on it. So a lot of and now looking back, I can kind of see the strategy, but when I'm going through it, it was difficult to see, but she was trying to get me to be kind to myself and really work on how I felt about myself internally. Because I think she, and it's true, she worked on that first before starting to work on the external things.
Oh yeah, because the self-talk that we have towards our own internal monologue is one of the most impactful things in either change or not change, right? Our lack of kindness, and you're not alone in this, our lack of kindness to ourselves is often such a huge problem. And it tends to start young, and it just, that voice gets louder and stronger. And I like that she started on the internal monologue first.
And I'm not sure if she said this or I said it, but I got the visualization of growing up in the early 90s, mid to late 90s, we would spend a lot of time creating these mixtapes.
Oh yeah.
And so it was either her or I said, I got to change my mixtape in my head.
Yes.
And so that's where I kind of started and okay, one of the best things about creating a mixtape is picking the first songs. Yeah. And so really trying to reframe and restructure some of the key thoughts I thought about myself, things that I may have learned along the way that weren't true. Even in a faith things, like she would challenge me like, well, that's not actually good theology.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
So she'd really challenge like, I don't know where you got that from, but that's not a part of Christianity. That's not a part of this or that.
Yeah.
You are like being harder on yourself than like the Bible even says.
Wow. Yeah. And again, that goes back to such a good match that she was able to share that perspective for you and be able to speak to that. Would you mind sharing, if only if you're open to it, some of the ways to shift the thinking about yourself? Because I think it's one of the most impactful things we can do for ourselves, but it is hard. It is hard to go in and change that tape that has been playing over and over and over and over and over and over and over for years and years and years, right?
Well, I think just realizing that, okay, I needed to change something and start with the change, and that kind of helped. And then I wrote like some very unkind things about myself in the journal. I was like, okay, whoa, this is not good. Like as I reread it, it's like, okay, like how do I begin to structure this? And so I started with therapy, and I started to do the typical things of like, just go for a long walk when you're upset, like just kind of like cool down. Like, you know, Steve Jobs went for a walk. There's a lot of like innovators that go for walks, but just like, how do you like reset?
Yes.
One of also the key things was, it was kind of cheesy, but it was helpful. Like when I was driving to work and like, it was a hard work day, I'd put on those like motivational YouTubes just to get some like positive words because it was so at times so negative.
That's a great point. And a lot of that is just takes practice, right? Like any strategy, I'm sure you have experienced this, but any strategy, it's not like you do it one time and everything is fixed. You have to do it over and over. We talk a lot about working out, right? You can't go to the gym and do 5 curls, be like, that's it, muscles, right? You have to go every day and you have to force yourself to do it even when you don't feel like it. And changing our internal monologue is similar, right? We have to work at that strategy because that tape is so strong. It's so cemented in your mind that those negative thoughts come easily. And you have to intentionally over time work to change that tape, you know.
Yeah, my therapist said something to me that really challenged me. She said, I want you to like yourself more than I like you.
Ooh, I like that.
And then so that really challenged me, like, okay, there might be value here that I don't see.
Yeah.
Because I'm always just striving to like get to the next step. And then when you get to the next step, it's not as rewarding as you think it is. And then so you try to get to the other next step and you're kind of like in this like rat race, especially in the Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah. And that goes back to some of that challenge you talked about initially, like feeling like I have to be productive. My worth and my value are intertwined with productivity, right? Yes. Besides kind of taking a break with a walk or resetting, how did you address that struggle? How did you kind of separate out value and productivity? I should say self-value and productivity.
Well, I still think I'm still a work in progress in that.
We always are.
But I think it was just really reframing of like one of the key things is like, I said, well, here's my goals for this year. And she's like, okay, great. Where's your goals as a husband? And then like, she puts different factors and puts like shows of puzzle pieces. I think sometimes as men, if we think work is going fine, then the rest of life should fall in place. But like, I kind of look at it as like quadrants, like how's my faith? How am I as a husband? How am I as a dad? And then like, how am I doing like physically for myself?
Nice.
And so like, and sometimes all 4 of those can feel like they're on fire. And then you're like, what do I do? But then sometimes one area can be feeling really well. And then you kind of like don't put the attention and focus that you need on it. And then it doesn't feel so well very, very soon.
Yeah. I like that perspective, breaking that up. And I noticed in your 4 quadrants, work wasn't one of them.
Oh, that's a very great point. So I have shown improvement then.
I like that. It's kind of a more well-rounded, because work is something that we do. And this is a part of our mainstream culture in the United States, is that we have defined work as who we are. And so it's actually really great to separate that out as one part of something that we do, but it's not who we are. And I love that you kind of recognize that.
And I think even more as men, because like what's the first thing I said is I'm the director of technology.
Yes, yeah.
When you go to a social hour, like what do you do?
Yep.
And then like as people retire, like they kind of like lose that identity. So yeah, it's a struggle, not just for me, but I've also seen it in other men as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the topics I wanted to kind of explore with you today was the idea of resilience, right? And I know this is something you're passionate about. One thing that's cool about Joe is that he actually speaks on this to other people in his field. Can you talk just a little bit about the concept of resilience and how therapy helped you push through some really challenging times?
Yeah. So I do, as you said, I do talks. I feel like in the IT world, like it's very easy to talk about firewalls, cybersecurity, like endpoint protection, all the different technology. But I saw like a really big gap in like leadership of like, we don't talk about how it feels to go through hard times.
Yeah.
And so I can't tell the years anymore, but starting 6 years ago, like it was a divorce.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, COVID hits. And as a director of technology, when COVID...
Education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there was a point where... I don't know, like you always kind of feel like you have a little bit of reserve, but even though you're kind of like nearing burnout, like I went past the reserve.
Wow. Yeah.
And so like that hit. And then I was in the middle of that. I was trying to, I landed at the district that I'm at, and then I tried to do a reorg. First lesson I learned is not call it a reorg, because people have a negative connotation to the term reorg.
Yeah.
But as I was doing that, like aligning like the different people with, hey, I see that you're really good at this. Can I like create like this, like reorganize the department?
Sure. Yeah.
And so I got a lot of resilience. I got a lot of resistance to that.
Yeah. Right. I'm
and
sure.
so like there's a lot of veteran group there, and they didn't want to change. They saw my ideas as like very threatening. Part of it was insecurity. Part of it was just didn't want to change.
Yeah.
And so that led into a whole group of my team. Like there was a kind of like a ringleader.
Yeah.
But then like this, as I challenged this one individual, like professionally, but I'm like, hey, like this is not the type of attitude or behavior that we want to see in a part of our team. Got a lot of resistance back, and then that person filed a uniform complaint against me. And in public education in California, that is like something that an employee can do. And then what that does is that creates like, as a director, I was just like, okay, like this is the first time that anyone has complained about me. Like usually people like love my ideas. Like I'm like all about innovation and I want to change things, but
that can feel like just a huge slap in the face here. You're trying to make things better and you get that kind of a complaint that just, that could take the wind right out of your sails.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It did feel like the wind got knocked out of me. It was the day before our big staff kickoff. And I just remember lying on the bench, and then the next day, the whole day, like I didn't do all the right sound checks. I just wasn't in the right state of mind. But that and then unfortunately that investigation didn't last like a week or 2 weeks. It lasted like 6 to 8 weeks. So that whole time you're like pending, like, what do I do? What do I,
living in just a state of anxiety. I'm sure.
Kind of like, am I crazy? Is like, did I do anything wrong?
Right.
Like, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, but maybe I'm missing something. Do I have a blind spot? So that that's a lot that was just like occurring. And then from that uniform complaint, it was unfounded. So that was great.
That's congrats. Yep.
And then my reorg got approved.
Okay.
Which was like, okay, I'm like, I'm starting to go on the track. And then one of my top tech people, like, hey, he's like, I'm burnt out. COVID, it expelled more energy than I want to put into a job. I don't have the right work-life balance. I'm going to resign. He gave me enough time, which was great. But then I'm like, okay, so I lost my top tech and I still have like this toxicity
in the team.
Kind of just growing in the team. And I was like, okay. And then unfortunately the person that filed the uniform complaint, he got to a point where he resigned.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, sometimes it's not the right fit.
Right. Yeah.
Not everyone's the right fit for the team. But then on his last day, as I removed access from it, because I work in technology, like once you're no longer part of the team, you lose your access.
Of course. Seems like a basic security thing. Yeah.
Right. He didn't like that. And then he called his buddy, and his buddy reactivated his account after I deactivated it, which is like a cybersecurity breach.
Yeah.
And then kind of skipped that part of it. But he got very upset at me. And then it led to him. I was at a conference in Palm Springs, and I received a phone call from Kaiser, and they said, hey, someone has put a threat on your life.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, oh, like, whoa. And
like then, if you're getting a call from a hospital, that's a credible threat, right? They deem this like you are at risk. Yeah.
And so got that and was like, wow, like someone dislikes me enough that they'd rather see me dead. And the actual threat was like to kill me or paralyze me. And so like that in itself,
It's
like
terrifying.
talking about
It's
mental health.
Terrifying, yeah.
And so it was like, okay, like how do I process this? How do I relate to this? How do I even like what do I even think at this point?
Yeah.
And so that got handled. That took a while. Unfortunately, like I don't know, I was in therapy. We talk about triggers.
Right.
I didn't know the actual threat until I was sitting in court about about the restraining order about this individual. And then I actually read the actual threat, and then it was like, oh, I got to process this all over again.
That fear comes right back because now you have more detail. Yeah.
And then, I forgot a huge event. So during that time, it was a uniform complaint, and then it led to a vote of no confidence. And all while that vote of no confidence, like this, so this was like one of my quadrants on fire.
Yeah.
And then I get news that my mom is really sick, and then she's not getting better, and then she passes away.
Wow.
And so like, it was just like another thing. So I'm like still kind of recovering from like, what's a relationship? What's a divorce? Like, what do I need to own? What do I need to repair? How do I move forward?
Yeah.
Then this work quadrant just completely blows up.
Yep.
And then like to lose your mom,
Yeah.
like there's like family deaths, and then there's like losing your mom.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Oh man. So it sounded like in this short period of time, it was just one thing after another. And like you said, it wasn't just one quadrant. You've got multiple quadrants on fire. So how did you not give up? It would have been really easy to quit your job. That quadrant's on fire. To like, how did you decide to keep going? Where did that resilience come from?
It's hard to describe. I think the focus was like I need to do this for my sons. Like I know like how important it is to see that they have a father. Because of a quick recap, my dad passed away when I was 18 months. So I knew what it was like to grow up without a dad, like your biological dad, and to have him there. It's like I felt like I had to go through it. I don't know why, and I can't fully explain it, but it was like, okay, like I was like kind of waving the white flag, like looking up to the sky above and saying, is this enough?
Is it enough?
Like how much more can I take?
Right.
And so, but it really did break of like, okay, when you're doing well at work and it isn't successful, like that really broke a lot of like the value of like, who am I if I'm not of work?
Right. And so for people to put that vote of no confidence, or the guy to make the complaint, or the death threat. And here's something, this is an area you're proud of. You work hard. I know, like I said, I know Joe pretty well, and your work ethic is incredible. Right. And so your passion for the industry is there. And so to have all of that there, and then to have everything still go wrong, right, within that, even though you're giving it your all, that just could be defeating, right? But you didn't let it defeat you.
So like, and then during that time, one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle Is Away. And I just felt like if I try to go around this, I'm not going to get the lessons. I'm not going to get the growth that is placed in front of me. I unfortunately, like I didn't feel a reason to quit, or there's plenty of reasons to quit. But I just didn't feel like I could give into it. Yeah. And I just really wanted to focus like, okay, like I'm learning new strategies. Yes. I'm learning new things. And all along the way, I think that's why I'm a big proponent of like, don't just go to therapy for one thing. Right. And so like I've told my therapist, like, I'm with you until you retire. Like, even if like I have to go like find you and like have coffee with you and not call it a therapy session, like we are sticking together until you finally tell me like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's huge. And that's, again, something that we talk about in the therapy world. We call that the systems perspective, that all these areas of your life, you cannot compartmentalize them. You might think you can, but they're all related, right? Everything, so I love that perspective that, like we're going to deal with it all. It all does, work together. So let's go back to that idea of like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to build resilience. And I really love that quote that you just shared about, if I just try to skirt the obstacle, I'm missing the opportunity for growth. Can you talk just a little bit more about that? What it meant for you to lean in to the learning rather than just trying to get over it as fast as you could? I think I don't know what it was, but it was like this like inner confidence that I'm not doing anything wrong. And so like, okay, if I'm not doing that wrong, I'm having opposition, the opposition isn't confirming that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It's confirming that I need, like, there's something that I need to learn from this, or I need to grow from this. It was just like, again, like constant resets. What I absolutely loved about the connection I had with my therapist is we were working on the divorce stuff.
Yeah.
And then like that kind of like, she quickly identified self-confidence and then like self-worth and like value and where you're getting your value from. And then the work stuff started hitting. So we started to tackle that together. And then losing my mom, and then like, okay, how do you process that? How do you restore that? I remember another time when someone that was like a cornerstone in my life, my grandfather, I did not grieve that well. And so like, okay, that, and I saw like what happened like years after that, by not grieving that well. And so together we went process, like, you need to teach me how to like grieve healthy. You need to teach me like how to be there for my family, but also not take on everything, but also like just how to like structure that. And then when the death threats, okay, someone doesn't value my life enough to see me still here. Yeah. Like, okay, how do you process that?
Right.
Like, how to like process like that kind of like anger, that kind of, and I understood where it was coming from, but still wasn't acceptable.
Right.
And then how do you like go through all that and then begin to face like, okay, is there like, is spring coming? Kind of like, I'm in the middle of winter, but is spring coming eventually?
Winter is long. Yeah. Okay. So did your therapist, along with helping you process all of this stuff, did she give you strategies that were helpful in between sessions? Because, one thing we say a lot is therapy isn't magic, and the real work isn't what's done in that 1 hour with your therapist. The real work is what's done in between sessions. You use the sessions as check-ins, as skill building, as, hey, let's come up with some new way to do this, but then you actually have to do it, right? That's where the real change happens. Can you talk more about that process for you?
Yeah, because I'll tell my therapist, like, you're the best therapist in the world. Yeah. And she says, well, no, you actually did the work.
Yes,
and that's
100%.
That's what made the difference. And so, yes, like she would like, hey, watch this movie. I want you to reflect. Right. Hey, I want you to journal, like start out with things that you're grateful for. And we've heard that, be thankful, be grateful. And that was just a strategy, but like doing the work. Okay, you're upset. Like how did you handle that? Oh, I went for a walk. Yeah. Or, hey, you're working on, you're working too much. How are you spending time with your boys? Like, how do you build connections? Like, how do you like start conversations with teenagers? Right. And so that was like really a good strategy. Like she would send me podcasts, she'd send me YouTube videos, like read this book. Yeah. And so like when I was in the world of dating, like I was like, okay, like I would go out there and like, okay, this is horrible. And I go back to her and then I was like, okay, let's unpack this. Right. Like, what is stuff that is like from me and what is stuff that I just need to learn? And so like along the way, it was just that connection. And then one of the things that was great about her is like sometimes like when it was really tough, like when in that like winter storm, we met weekly. Yeah. And then like now we meet like once a month. Yeah. And if something comes up, we may meet every 2 weeks. Right. But just having that flexibility to like, oh, okay, like I've heard of it called as maintenance mode. Yes. But then like being in maintenance mode, but then if there's something that you need to tackle or if there's something that comes up that's like a new discovery that you want to like kind of work through, is being able to have that flexibility has been really nice. Yeah. And that's really good that you're willing to do that too, right? Sometimes people, I think, feel like, okay, once I've titrated down, right? Like that once I'm seeing my therapist every month, for example, then I've done something wrong if I need it more. And it's like, nope, life is just hard, right? We just ebb and flow with what life is throwing at you. So it's cool that you've been kind of willing to do that and your therapist has followed suit in that. And I think as men, yes, it's asking for help, but I would say like, it wasn't perfect and I didn't do it perfect. Sure. And like, even though I was like going through it and I was determined not to give up. Like when I got the death threat, like it changed like something into me. And like, these people are going to try anything to push me out. And I got like this weird anger and I'm like, I am not giving up even more. And I kind of like doubled down on it. But I do remember there was an afternoon I went and picked up my son. And then I thought like my mask was like good and it was secure. And my son said, are you okay? And I couldn't say yes. Yeah. And I knew deep down I was hurting and like, okay, this is at capacity. And then again, like okay, I'm sick, like not sick, like,
right.
but like, hey, if I have a cold, I have a sinus infection, like I'm going to call the doctor and like, hey, and that was like one time where I had to call my therapist and said, hey, I don't feel well. Like I am in the midst of it. And like, my hope, like that small window is like, I could barely see hope right now.
That glimmer of light is
and then
teeny
so
tiny.
she jumped in right away because she knew that I wasn't, wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't like, I was actually reaching out like, hey, like it's getting really dark and I don't know what my next step is.
Yeah. Good on you for reaching out. And I'm glad again that she was right there. Let me ask you this, as a dad, and recognizing the need to be intentional about your mental health and that balance and those quadrants in your life, how are you passing that on to your sons? What are you modeling for them?
Well, I do like little things like I'll put, like counseling or therapy appointments on the family calendar.
Nice.
So that they see it's acceptable.
Yes.
And so like
different than how you grew up, right?
Absolutely. It was not talked about like, and then I say, hey, I'm learning this. And then I tell my sons all the time, like, I'm parenting you in a different way. And I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm trying to do it a different way. And I want to parent you a different way. I think one of the things is if you've had, we talk in family therapy about your family origins.
Yes.
If you have a tough family origins, like, one of my goals is I don't want my kids to be able to survive my childhood and be proud of it. In a sense of like, they don't have to go through what I went through, but because they're in a much healthier, functional family, even with the divorce, it's like, okay, I need to get this right so I can help them. I need to be a better dad. And in order for me to be a better dad, like going to therapy is helping a ton. Yeah. And then learning these strategies, like, okay, like I feel like I'm a much better dad. I feel like just the insecurity is like, there's like going through all that resilience. And I'm like, I don't know what the ultimate lesson was for that, but the confidence I have on the other side of going through all those obstacles is something that I did not have before.
Oh, that's huge.
And so when I was like starting therapy again and like a lot of like low self-worth to now, like, it wasn't life got easier. It got much, much harder.
Yeah. Oh, that is a really great point as well. That like therapy doesn't necessarily mean things will just brighten up, that winter will end, right? Like it's a tool to help you get through that really rough storm better, right? You have to face the storm one way or another. You could either do it with better tools or, you could have a little spoon, try to shovel your way out of the avalanche, right? And so I think that's really important that, again, therapy isn't magic. It's not like it makes the world better. It doesn't magically make those situations go away, but it will better equip you if you're open to it and implementing the strategies. So
and I think the strategies along the way were very helpful. And then like, I looked at it as like, I want to grow in my profession. I want to grow in this area. I see this area is really hindering. Like I have some like false thinking. I have some areas that I really need to rethink things. I have some areas I need to pause. And then it was not easy. Yeah. It was not fun a lot of times. Yeah. But it was totally, totally worth it.
That's really, really cool. And again, you're saying such truths, right? Like therapy isn't always fun. Sometimes I'll joke about like, oh man, I can tell when people don't want to see me because it's like, hey, happy Tuesday. We're here to talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to you. It's not always the conversation people are looking forward to, but it is so necessary, right? If you're going to see that change and move forward. What would you tell someone if they're feeling that sense of like, I'm in winter, man, the storm is here and it's big, and maybe they are considering reaching out for some help? What are some encouragements you might give to folks?
It's a great question. One thing I love about therapy, and like you can go to family and you can go to friends, but they're not professionally trained and they also have their own like biases, and they want to see you well, and they may not tell you something that will be helpful to you because they're afraid of hurting you or
damaging the relationship.
Absolutely. Right? And so like, I think when you're in the middle of that winter storm, you have to think about, okay, what can I do today? And if today is like, hey, like let's go to psychology today and look up therapists, like then go that route, or contact you if they're living
Inspire Counseling.
If you're living in New Jersey. But overall, I just would that first step, like say like this is a lot, and it's okay, and what's like the next first step I could do. Like there was like with COVID, with an unhappy team, or when as soon as I heard my mom wasn't well, like I didn't like work became like such a little priority. Like I got into my car, booked a ticket to the airplane, and I flew to Reno. Like it was like, I don't care about my car. I don't care about work. Didn't care about email. Yeah. And then I was like, just jumping there. But that was like my last step that I could do that day. Again, I was just focused on what is your next step that you can do. Yeah. Schedule a consultation, like just do like a quick, see if it fits, and then keep trying until something fits. Yeah. It's like one tool. It's not the whole tool.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's one of the things we will often tell people is like, we just want to be a tool in your tool belt, right? We don't want to solve the whole problem. It's not we can't, like you have to make the steps yourself. I think that's great encouragement just to pick up the phone or go on a website or something and just start, right? Make that first step without feeling like I had to commit forever to do this or something. Find the right fit for you.
And I felt like I got very lucky. Like I've had other therapists that weren't great connections or like for whatever reasons, like they like would move out of the area and they weren't practicing in California anymore. And so like, I would just say, be encouraged, find the right fit, but also like, it is kind of like, it is really nice and really comforting to tell someone what you're really thinking and having someone that you could begin the process of being honest with. Right. Like I remember telling like I love my best friend. Yeah. But telling my best friend and he was just like, okay, that's really tough. Yeah. Like, and he doesn't have the skills to like really help me with that or like, and I didn't want to like put all that pressure and burden on him. So like, I think that was also kind of freeing is like having that person that you could tell things to and being safe, secure, and then working through it. Right. That's the best part.
Yeah. And knowing that they're not coming in with a perspective about the person you're talking about already, or, well, I'm going to talk about, I need to vent about this person, but they're best friends with them. So I have to be careful what I say. Like none of that. You can just be so authentic and there's no judgment and you could say it all.
Well, I think another key thing is as being busy, as living in the Silicon Valley where 20 miles could take an hour and a half. I think the virtual therapy has been like critical. It's been key. Like if I'm at home, I can take the therapy call at home. And if I'm at work, I can close my office, have a quick session, and it's like really convenient, really cool. And so I was just really like the whole industry to be flexible like that.
Yeah, there's been that huge shift into telehealth, and that's what Aspire does, right? That's a big part of why we do it. Is we want to be accommodating to real life. You can't always hop in your car, drive 30 minutes to a session, wait in a waiting room for like it just doesn't always work for people. And so that's our intention, is to just be available when people need it, where people need it, how frequently they need it. And so I love that it has worked for you as well. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I know you talk about when you do your presentations around this, encouraging other people in your field to consider how therapy might be helpful, consider their mental health. You talk a lot about perspective shifts. I know we mentioned it a bit at the beginning of this talk, but can you just share more about your passion around changing perspectives and what you tell people in order to encourage them to do that?
Yeah, I try to bring up a lot of like leadership examples because when I'm giving these presentations, it's often to like other fellow leaders in public education. Yeah, they could be superintendents, assistant superintendents, or also technology directors, managers, or people upcoming in leadership. I think of like just getting started, like with Amelia Earhart, and just like, hey, what is the first thing I could do today? Yes. Like, and then make the next right decision and make the next right decision. And that's been very helpful. And then like Abraham Lincoln's story is amazing. Like someone that's battled depression throughout his whole administration and being in a very critical part of the United States during the Civil War. And then how he just led, he's famous for this too shall pass. Yes. And then I said that a lot during those winter days of just like, okay, this is not fun. I do not enjoy this, but
this too shall pass.
The next day will come.
Yeah. No, that's a really healthy kind of mindset. And it can be hard when that winter seems long. I know I was working with a client who had a kind of a similar situation. The story was different, but it just felt like every time she thought she saw light at the end of the tunnel, something else really traumatic or really awful or huge in her life just all the quadrants were on fire, right? And we kept saying that like this storm is awful, but every storm ends, right? Every storm ends. And we just worked to navigate that storm and to handle it well and have her, she was passionate, she was a mom, and she would always say that like, I want to ride the storm out while staying a great mom. We talked about strategies about that. And, so just kind of being willing to look at not, again, therapy as a way to let's end the storm, because you often don't have the power to do that, but as a way to navigate it.
And then in public education, if the strategy works great for a student with a disability, and the strategy works great for an English learner, then you know what? It actually works pretty well with students that aren't an English learner or don't have disabilities. And I think one of the key things is building systems up in those winter months. Okay, if I build a system up when it's doesn't feel great,
yes,
when it feels like gloomy and it doesn't feel like very hopeful,
yep.
But when the tide changes, like those systems that you have in place allow you like those spurts of growth.
Yeah.
And then like when there's like those breaks, like keep on rebuilding the system.
Yeah.
Like I think in today's world, like everyone has like their own little ChatGPT that they're customizing.
Yeah.
They like to ask questions like, what do you know about me? Like, I like to ask like, what are my blind spots? What am I good at? But I think like as you build systems with therapy, that's been very helpful to like, okay, if like a storm comes, like I know what to do.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, okay, like, oh no, a storm. And then like, I think that's where we make a lot of mistakes is like just reacting to what is in front of us.
Right. And it goes back to your point that, often therapy is most effective when you allow yourself to stick with it and work through things. It may not even be a current crisis, but proactively learning and preparing for the next time a storm comes, because it will, right? Life is life. Everyone will face storms. And I know often people seek therapy as a kind of a last resort. And we often encourage folks, like, don't look at it that way. Like, be more proactive. The moment you see something challenging, or like when the storm is calm, that is a wonderful time to go in and say, all right, let's look at all the systems in my life. Let's look at how I am as a parent, a friend, a spouse, a partner. And how did my childhood affect that? How did all the, and piecing it all together so that when the next storm comes, you are more prepared, you are more stable, your ship is already righted, you're more likely to successfully navigate that storm.
Okay, just another analogy. I feel like when the storm hits, it's like those windy roads.
Yeah.
And then like when you have like, a good period, you could just floor it. And then like the growth, like because you spent the systems in when it was hard, when it's not as hard, like the growth is like just so amazing. It just feels so good to like, okay, this actually does work, or this actually is helping me. And like, I don't know, I've seen it just bear fruit in all aspects of my life.
That's cool.
The 4 quadrants and then and beyond.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I'm just so thankful for you coming on and sharing this story. I feel like it's very relatable, and I'm just really, really grateful that you not only chose to talk about it here, but that you do this. Like I said, you share, you present this at different conferences and things. It's just a powerful story. Before we wrap up, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or any tips or anything that you want to share that you feel like our listeners would benefit to know?
That's another great question. I don't know. It's also really helped me to like, we talk about it, especially in California and public education, like the whole child.
Yeah.
I think it's really put a different perspective of how I view my work. And so like I've built partnerships with student services and like, hey, like we have flags. Like if someone searched for something like, hey, not feeling great, or, unfortunately, like I want to kill myself. We get alerts, and we have our mental health team that responds to it.
Awesome.
And building those systems in place that like, hey, like if I was in middle school, if I was in high school, if these are my sons, like what support would I want to do? And making sure that we have those systems in place has been like, as I've learned, grown, and done better, like I want to do better in all aspects of my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And it's powerful. And I can't agree with you more that we want to be, again, proactive about mental health. We don't want to have to wait until the crisis is massive before we can intervene and help people build those successful systems.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
So someone that was in therapy for maybe a year or two, like where do you see the next level of growth? See, I'm like always like trying to like, how do you hit that next level of growth as a, professional and as a therapist, like where do you see that growth occur? Like, okay, they're out of your client, hopefully soon, if not, she's out of that storm. Yeah. What would you then recommend to people? Like what's the purpose of staying in therapy when there's no more problems?
Crisis, right? Oh, that's such a great question. And I got to kind of reiterate what I mentioned before, but a lot of times, because when we're in a crisis, it is a little bit about survival, right? What skills or strategies do I need just to get through this piece, just so that my depression doesn't get the best of me, just so that I don't, my anxious thinking doesn't make me break up with somebody that I don't want to break up with, so a little bit of that survival mode. And when somebody has kind of passed that storm, then it gives us the time we call it the deep dive, right? Like, I know that's kind of an old school term in business, but we talk about like, that gives us the opportunity to really figure out, we talk a lot about attachment. Like, what is your attachment style? How does that affect how you relate to people? Where are your strengths? How do we build on those strengths? What other areas of your life are you finding that you're not satisfied with? And we really look to connect the dots, right? How does this thing that maybe you never dealt with 20 years ago, but you're like, it was 20 years ago, it was fine, right? How does that actually affect what happens when your child gets way on your nerves that day? And how does that dot then affect the fact that I didn't meet that deadline at work? And, all of those things, we are an interrelated web, right? And so in those calm times, it gives us the opportunity to really take a bird's eye view and say like, okay, we don't have to do crisis mode anymore. So let's connect the dots. Where do we see dissatisfaction in your life? And really exploring where could that be coming from? What could be lending to that? And what could we do differently?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah. I just think it's a powerful process and doesn't always need to be about crisis. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Joe. This was awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I may Zoom you in for another episode sometime because it's just great to hear from you. And I know you're a proponent of mental health and I love that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.